You're listening to a Whales Are Whales production. You're also listening to Whales. Visit whalesorewhales.com for more projects and shows like this one.
Greetings.
Hello! Welcome to Hearthaholics, the Hearthstone podcast about sitting back, chatting with friends, and making terrible puns. This is episode 26. I am your host, Bryan, and joining me today is Andres. Hello, Andres.
Hey, Bryan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Actually, I'm doing really well. It's my birthday.
Yeah,
so I guess I should be doing better than normal.
I was about to say that because it is your birthday, so happy birthday!
It is, and for people listening the day this comes out, yesterday was my birthday, so, you know, if you wish me happy birthday on Twitter or something, not that I'm hinting or anything, you will be late, so. Also, the observant listener may notice that Billy is not here today, but we have a replacement host who is very nice to come on last minute to guest in Billy's absence, Rob. Hello, Rob.
Hello.
How you doing? You are also a fellow Hearthstone podcaster.
I am.
So tell us a bit about Velen's Chosen.
All right, so my podcast, like you just said, is called Velen's Chosen, and it aims to really snap down the, basically just kind of like overall the meta, how to play the game type stuff, but more basic with like analysis. So
right.
This one's more of like a strategic, like I would say this is probably geared for those people that are between, you know, rank 16 and Legend, trying to just keep pressing through card analysis, meta analysis, etc. Whereas my show is more of, okay, so you're a budget player or you're free to play, you want to spend a few bucks or you want to spend $0, and we're here to help you out and figure it out from there. So we try to get you decks that work, that are cheap, and we also try to work through like knowledge-based things that you need to understand or things that you want that are relevant to you as a player, even though you may be a budget or a low-income type player, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's really easy to lose track of, just to assume, okay, you're running Druid, so you have 2 Force of Natures, and you have Cenarius, and, you know, you have everything you need to run a Druid deck, but it's easy to lose track of that isn't true for everyone.
It's so funny you say that, because we actually just did an episode on Druid like 1 or 2 episodes ago.
Right,
so
and that
really cool.
double Force of Nature thing is honestly a big stumbling block for people, I've noticed.
And the Ancients of Lore and Ancient of War before, you know, this current TGT meta came out.
Yeah, so it's honestly a part of strategic deck building, because sometimes you do have limited resources. You can't just assume you have access to the entire card pool at all times. So that's cool. I've appreciated that, even though I typically have built the cards for the decks I need. There are still times that, like, in a specific class, I don't have whatever the required cards, especially with the TGT legendaries coming out.
Yeah, we also go ahead, Andres. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, like over time it changes a lot. Like as you build your collection, right? When you get Sylvanas for the rest of your life. Before you haven't gotten there, especially because I can tell, because I've been helping my friends get into it. Especially my friend Kristen, she really got into it, and she loves the game, but she hasn't spent much money on cards, and she doesn't really want to. She just enjoys playing the game for free. So I've been trying to help her build decks and stuff, and it's really hard, because you get used to all the luxuries of having almost a full collection, and
or
then
even
once
having
you're working,
4 epic cards is like putting you a head and shoulders above them.
Yeah, exactly. And it comes to the point where you start thinking like strategically, like, well, okay, she's not gonna play this class anytime soon, but she's playing this class a lot. So you dust a little bit over here, and then you craft a few of the cards. It's been kind of fun for me. So it's cool that your podcast focuses on that aspect of the game.
You started an EU podcast. Different podcast for the people in the EU who speak EU-ish.
It's in German, actually.
I speak EU-ish.
Exactly. But no, you started up another account for like free to play, right?
Yeah, actually I talked significantly on our last episode about that, and our last 2 episodes about that. Plus, we had Vincent, our friend from the Attack podcast, Hangouts, and he came on the show, and we talked about his EU experience because he's been doing it basically a few weeks after Nax launched, or right before Nax launched. He started it, and I started mine post TGT launch. Yep. And it's been great. Like, I realized that you can get so many freebies now that, like, I think people that aren't willing to search or don't know that they're available to players is just like they're really hurting themselves. Like, I mean, you play against every single hero, right? And you get them all to level 10. You get all those basic cards. And just the fact that that's doing a grind is fun, but it's also kind of demoralizing unless you're just playing against AI for so long. So that felt like I was hitting my face against a wall for a while. But, I mean, by the time you're done with it, you've actually achieved your 100 wins. So they drop like 500 or 300 or 500 gold in your lap or something like that. And it's like, wow, this is awesome.
But now you have to figure out, like, do I spend that on a wing? Do I spend that on classic packs, TGT packs, TGT
so
packs?
I've been really interested in doing that. But basically what you do is you just get all the packs that you get for free that are just pack-based and not gold-based. And then you figure out, like, what deck you're going to play based off of those cards is what I've done.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of playing a deck that I want to play. I knew that, like... I don't want to spend the whole episode on this. Basically, like...
You let the cards speak to you.
Yeah, like you can. This. But that's what's interesting though. Like, right, that's the way I've chosen to select my goals in the game. So, like, what we talked about the last 2 episodes in particular is like this game is so diverse, not because and frustrating at the same time, because like you just sit there, you're like, well, I don't have any of the cards for these 2 decks that I want to try, and I have all the cards for this one deck that I hate. So, and the worst part is you're getting literally about a fourth on your investment back for just disenchanting everything of the cards you have, and you're not going to be able to craft that deck anyways.
It's pretty ingenious design, though, because it allows people to not feel overwhelmed having to try to play every deck at once. So it introduces new elements, especially to new players, in ways that isn't overwhelming.
Right. And
so it's really cool in that
It's insane, too, like, because I've been climbing, like, really hard this last month, which we'll get to. Dude, like, the last couple days, I've been able to grind out enough games where I'm actually earning 100 gold without doing quests. And, like, that is a noticeable difference. Like, I am so excited about that. Because, like, if you just sit down and play for, like, an hour to 2 hours, an hour, it's not really worth it. But, like, if you can say, I'm going to play until I get, 10 wins today. Or 11 wins, or however many things you get until your gold drops. Like, you're getting your quest, you're getting 30 gold. It's like, dang, this is good gold money.
Absolutely. And a couple other things about Rob for listeners who might recognize him. He comes to the game nights. So he's been going to the TAC game nights we run for a very long time. He's actually been one of the longest fans and friends of the podcast. And finally, he designed our logo that we're currently using.
Oh, yeah, I did that
too. You've done a lot of awesome stuff for the podcast. So it's great to finally have you on here. But yeah, we can probably skip past our normal what have we been doing in Hearthstone, because Andres, your whole topic is kind of about what we've been doing in Hearthstone.
Pretty much.
Specifically, Rob's climb to Legend.
That's right. I heard that this month you finally got to Legend, Rob, and that is super exciting, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, as the Japanese say, yatta! Which means I did it.
Nice.
Exactly.
I've been watching a lot of Heroes, so...
I remember that. I'm like, where did I hear that? And I'm like, that was in Heroes.
Heroes is in the show, right? Like
the TV
my
wife and I just got like 4 episodes into season 3 tonight, actually, so...
Okay, gotcha.
Nice.
I only saw the first few episodes of that, but I think it was enough to see the yatta.
It's in the first episode, so it's hard to miss.
Yep, that's what I thought. So, yeah, what did you do? Like, what were you playing to get the Legend?
Okay, so I'll make this really quick because we have a lot of stuff to cover today.
That we do.
Basically, the deck is called the Corridon. I don't care what you say. You maybe call it a secret paladin, maybe, but it's not the secret paladin. It's the Corridon, and it's named after Cora, or CG Songbird, on her Legend grind, and she's a pro player, one of 5 or 6 for Vicious Syndicate Gaming, who I've actually just got hired on last week to do some graphics for. So I'm really pumped to be partnered with them and help them out. And I've been benefiting a lot, obviously, because there's a lot of Legend players to surround myself around. So, she basically
just gave them your account info, and you're like, go, go, go. And you're like,
I wish they were that nice.
Taking secret paladin to a new level.
But yeah, what's insane is Cora has never hit something past like top legend 84 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And
it's still pretty good.
She basically used and modified her secret paladin list because she wasn't looking at anybody else's lists, except until she started hitting legend. She's like, man, I think I can make this deck better, because she was one of the few people who's like Mysterious Challenger, like her and Strifecrow, right? Because Strifecrow always gets his cards right. He's like, this is my dark horse, no pun intended, but this is a good card.
I was wondering what the card was going to be. I remember saying, what is the Grim Patron of this set going to be? What card is special enough to, like, define a deck? I never saw it being Mysterious Challenger.
Yeah. So Cora basically ran her list into the top 10 within the first, 2 days of playing it on Legend Ladder.
Nice.
So she hit...
What's different about it?
Okay, so this list is absolutely balls to the walls and nuts, right? It is what they would call the mid-range Secret Paladin. There's actually 3 different archetypes for this deck right now, and Cora's is the only one in the middle. The reason that this deck is in the middle is because it runs aggro cards like double Secret Keeper. And it also runs the Mysterious Challengers, and it does not run Competitive Spirit because it's a junk card.
Okay. What about Divine Favors?
It does not run a Divine Favor. I actually just messaged Cora tonight about potentially dropping one Haunted Creeper for one Divine Favor, because sometimes I empty my hand and I'm like, oh, I have all my win conditions still in the deck.
Yeah, because I'm pretty much been familiar with 2 different Secret Paladins, right? The one that is like really early game, just dump your hand, then Divine Favor, and then you top it off with like the Mysterious Challengers and maybe like a Dr. Boom.
Yep.
And then I've seen more of like what you're talking about, the mid-range version, which uses more like Shredders, and it has still like Tyrion, Dr. Boom, the whole shebang. It is more about, I feel like it's more like the traditional mid-range paladin where you're just fighting for the board, and then your turn 6, 7, and 8 is just like incredibly strong.
But what it really does is it makes the mid-range archetype better by fusing it with the secret, the secret keepers and the secrets, because you're running double Avenge, double Noble Sack, you're running 1 Repentance and 1 Redemption.
Okay.
So it's 6 secrets, and then I was even considering teching in, if I started playing against more handlocks, which I actually didn't. I was going to put in a second Repentance, but yeah, it was crazy. Like, just the deck runs only 1 muster. Like, that's the one thing where you're like, what? It runs 1 muster. That's right.
Paladins haven't been running 1 muster since
but it runs Coghammer, right?
It runs 1 Coghammer. It runs 1 muster. It runs double True Silver. And since Cora and I have talked, and she's been playing it, it's gotten better, because she got top 3 after she made these changes. She ran a Lotheb and what was the other card? Oh, and she had a Competitive Spirit in there. So we dropped both of those cards, picked up a second Consecrate. I'm looking at the list,
and Competitive Spirit is here.
Yeah, so we dropped. She and I are. She said she's going to probably modify the list soon, but I'm telling everybody, go to the deck list. viciouscards/Coradin, Coradin.
Yep, that's what I'm looking at.
And it's got a really funny picture of Uther with Cora's face on it. She hates that picture so much, but everyone in the team loves it, so she got vetoed. But basically, so it runs 1 muster. The big keys are actually swapping Competitive Spirit for a second Consecration. And then you run double Kings, 1 muster, 1 Coghammer, double True Silver. And then it also runs, Tyrion, double Challenger, Boom, and a Belcher instead of a Lotheb, because that kills the mirror match. Once I made that change, it was just like GG every game.
Oh, there's a lot of 4-drops in there, but I guess I can see how that kind of curves around mid-range.
Dude, I'm telling you, it works, because you're every game you mulligan the 4s. The only cards you keep ever is a Secret Keeper and 1 to 2 secrets, or you keep mini bots and creepers and knife jugglers. Honestly, you play the knife jugglers to bait out removal more than anything.
So, obviously Secret Paladin is big now. I've pretty much, this last month, almost spent no time on ladder, and now I'm getting back into it again. What are you seeing, in addition to Secret Paladin and your Climb to Legend? What were the other big decks were you seeing? Was it Patron Warrior and Midrange Druid mostly?
It's funny you asked that, because towards the end of the climb, last night, it was I want to say it was probably every Actually, I have my stats right in front of me. Just last night alone, I probably played against Warrior, Paladin, and Druid the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds about right. I was playing a little bit yesterday, and I faced about 60% Paladins, and then some Warrior and Druid sprinkled in. I think like a random hunter.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that's been kind of what's been defining the meta for a little while.
Yeah, I only played against 5 Paladins last night.
That's interesting. And another interesting thing about the Secret Paladin deck is Mysterious Challenger is the only TGT card being run in it, right? Everything else is just like kind of raiding on its back.
It depends on if you run the competitive spirit or not, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's right. That is a TGT card. But that was pretty much... Did Patron even get a TGT card in it?
Patron Warrior? No, I don't think... I mean, I don't know.
What would you cut for a TGT
guy might run
card?
Bash or something, but I don't think so.
Yeah, and then Druid got like Darnassus Aspirant.
Speaking of Warriors, Andres, have you seen the Slam Warrior list for Control?
The one that Colento was running?
I don't remember if it was Colento, but like it runs 2 Slams in Control Warrior.
And no Acolytes?
No, I think I think some lists run 1 of each, actually.
Okay, because I saw Colento running this like weird list that had no Acolytes and doubles.
Dude, I ran into that like 3 times last night.
Yeah, a lot of people were playing it because he was doing pretty good with it before.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, you don't even know it's not Patron until turn 7. You're like, when is freaking Emperor going to show up? And then they drop True Heart, and you're like, oh, crap.
Yeah, probably not a needed card for Patron.
So I want to ask you a little bit about like your climb in general with this deck. What was the thing that was giving you the hardest time, and what was the thing that would make you glad every time you face it?
Patron Warrior and Dragon Priest.
So
in that order.
Which is which?
Patron Warrior is the worst matchup. I won 1 game out of 5. And the one game that I won, he drew poorly, and I drew decent, and I top decked for the win. Like, that's the power of Patron Warrior.
Yeah, that deck seems like it's pretty good against yours, just because it can do a lot of AoE and then take over with the patrons, and you're not running equalities in your list, right?
And a lot of your minions become bad for you to have on the field.
Yeah, so you have pretty much no way of
there's no answer
like
for
a patron
his
board.
Stuff. Like, the patron just plays solitaire on you. I mean, that's what patrons do, man. They just they can ignore everything a priest throws at them. Like, that's very powerful.
I had a game against Patron today as Dragon Priest that came down to the final turn. He was literally drawing into milling damage, and then he got exactly lethal on the turn before I killed him. It was pretty hilarious. But Dragon Priest, are you saying that's the easiest matchup for you or the second hardest?
Yeah, I went 10-2 against Dragon Priest. And Control Priest, I was 4-4. So...
Yeah, it seems like if you get a good start against the Priest, it's too hard for them to come back in tempo, especially because all of their AoE is so expensive.
Yep, and as much as I absolutely hate Druid, I had 11-4 against them.
Nice.
And then the mirror matchup, listen to this, I was 9-10, so 47% win rate. The really crazy thing is, my win rate was probably close to 10% before the last 2 days that I grinded ladder.
When you swap the Belcher in?
Or your overall win
rate? My just in the mirror match, right? Secret.
I was wondering, how did you get that high?
Yeah. But, oh my gosh, that Secret Paladin, like, I lose more often to that aggro list than anything else. Like, they're so fast.
It seems like, your weakness would be the faster version of your deck.
Yeah, it's crazy. But, like, what you really want is you basically, like, play it. I think the only time I ended up winning was, like, I realized that holding kings was actually a good idea against the mirror match. I was like, you know what, YOLO. This matchup sucks. I'm going to hold kings and see what happens. And I had a mini bot, and it paid off. It was just like, get out of here. Boom, for 6, and you have a Divine Shield. It's like... Sorry, bro. And then, like, the other thing that makes that matchup better, so if you want to play against Secret Pally, and it's the aggro version with this particular deck, because it's mid-range, just mulligan for every single aggro card. So if you pick up Creeper, just drop it. If you pick up, a Secret, if you only have one, like an Avenge or a Get Down, I'll hold it. and I'm like praying that I draw a Secret Keeper on turn 1. And you don't know how many times I had an empty hand with no Secret Keepers. I had like 2 in my opening hand of secrets. I was like, oh, please. And I drew it, and I was like, yes! A 3/4 on turn 2 with a Get Down and Avenge. It's golden. You have no chance. Like, if you know you get those 2 secrets on turn 1, pull out the Secret Keeper, you just win.
Right. Yeah, I've only played a few games with it. And actually, the version I was running of Secret Paladin did not have Secret Keeper, because I was falling out of vogue with certain lists. That's
the controller list, yeah.
Yeah. So I might go back and try this to get a feel for Secret Paladin. What's making me a little sad is I was hoping this month to try a climb with Dragon Priest, but if it's
Dragon
really
Priest is so bad.
Is it? Like, why?
It's so bad. Okay, so here's why Dragon Priest is bad. It's bad against Patron.
Okay.
It's bad against the Control / the Corridon list. And I think after this episode and my episode go out, plus next week, I think Cora's list has been punched through. Karma played it on stream. It's gotten featured in the meta snapshot on one website or something. So like people are going to start playing this list. So that makes Dragon Priest astronomically even worse, because you're going to see this more. And think about all the other decks in the ladder, right? Freeze Mage. Freeze Mage destroys Dragon Priest. If you play Kibler's Dragon Grinder Mage, that beats Dragon Priest. Tempo Mage is like 50-50 matchup. Like, every game that Dragon Priest was winning before when TGT launched was old meta decks.
That's true. Dragon Priest was really good, especially against the more aggressive style decks, like against the Hunter and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but isn't that so sad?
Well,
like, it's such a great deck.
I wouldn't discount the Dragon Priest. It might not be a tier 1 deck right now, just because you're right. The top decks right now in the meta game are a little favored against it. I would agree that Patron and the Priest, the Paladin, have a favorable matchup against that Dragon Priest. But that being said, though, I think Priests have a lot of tools right now, and if the meta game continues like that, I can see them adapting a little bit. Like, some people have already come up with like different style of Priest ideas.
Yeah.
Like that Heladin that Sid a lot was playing with.
Oh, you mean the healing Priest? Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that deck. It has a lot of burst, and it has a ton of AoE damage, which can be good to get rid of like the hordes of minions this deck puts out.
Right. But yeah, like, if you just think about it, like, I went 4-4 against Control Priest and 10-2 against Dragon Priest with this deck in particular. So I think like my view is going to be a little bit skewed, because a lot of our listeners on my show, especially, maybe a little bit on your show, are going to be playing this deck, and they're like, this guy's an idiot. He's playing, he calls Dragon Priest bad, blah, 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 blah. But the fact of the matter is, I have played 25 games on ladder with Dragon Priest at the beginning of the season with a lot of success.
Yeah, you were all about that deck.
And Choma is my favorite card, so don't call me a moron. But like, what I'm going to say is this deck is golden up until you hit rank 9, and then you're just getting crushed.
That's interesting. Yeah, I haven't... When I was into it was never when I was in the high ranks. It's always just been near...
But I tell you what, this is a noob killing deck, man. Like, this thing just destroys people, and it's so easy it almost plays itself sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of just curves out. You can get some complex turns if you end up like filling up your hand with a lot of card draw, and then the later turns come with a lot of options, but...
but you're right. It kind of plays out like the Druid deck, where you're just trying to play on curve, like you know, your biggest minion every turn, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. So I can totally see it. Kind of, again, it's had a lot of luck for me in the lower ranks, but I do think you're right that it's going to have a lot more. There's a reason it isn't really a tier 1 deck right now. Because it is a little bit predictable to play around and doesn't really work against the mechanics that are incredibly popular.
And
right now.
the biggest problem for me with Dragon Priest was, honestly, it's like, okay, so I like Dragon Priest over Dragon Warrior. I think it wins that matchup 8 times out of 10. Maybe 7. Probably closer to 7, actually. But I really think that the deck's weakness is the fact that it can't always beat Druid. And it can't always beat Control Warrior. And I think Control Warrior is a good matchup against that.
Yeah.
Like, if you play Justicar and double... what are they called? Shield Maidens, then you win that matchup.
Right. Because as we've covered, it's like on our last episode or a couple episodes ago, it has very little reach. So it's just kind of just level out of its range.
It's just so sad if it's an Outlast deck and it can't outlast a controller. It's like, well, why even play it?
Well, it's not really an Outlast deck, though. It's,
what I think the problem is with this deck and like some other decks that are in the similar vein, and why they're not a tier 1 deck, is because if you think about it, right now, all the tier 1 decks, with the exception of Handlock, and I'll get to that, are decks that can outright win the game with almost no board, or literally no board, and can do this against like any deck. Patron Warrior can do it, Druid can do it with a combo, and the Secret Paladin doesn't outright win with just killing you, but the tempo gain from the Mysterious Challenger is so great. It just cheats out like so many mechanics in the game.
You should call it the cheat death deck. Like, that's what it is.
It looks into your deck and just plays up to 5 cards all at once. And if you have a board, it becomes like almost unmanageable.
It's like,
plus the follow-ups that you have after that. So basically all the tier 1 decks just have kind of like an unfair mechanic going on for them.
I think even Handlock, I think they all have really clear win conditions.
The reason I was going to say about Handlock is that Handlock, it used to be like that when it had the Faceless Manipulator with Leroy Jenkins combo.
Oh my gosh, I hated that version.
And the only reason Handlock is a tier 1 deck right now is because of Patron Warrior. And it can also deal well with the Secret Paladin because it has Shadow Flame and all this other stuff.
Oh my gosh, that's one of the worst matchups for this deck, by the way.
But basically, that's why it's in tier 1. If those decks were not tier 1, Handlock might not be in that up there. But going back to Priest and even throwing Shaman in there and stuff like that, those are decks that are fighting for the board and don't have those insane mechanics that can just outright win you the game even though you're super behind. With those decks, you actually have to be ahead to actually win the game. You need to be able to stick minions on the board and honestly go to the face. And I feel that is why those have not made it to the top of the list.
Yeah, like think about what the Demon Handlock and the regular Handlock, as well as even Freeze Mage and Patron Warrior, what do they do the whole game? They've got every card in their deck is generating cycle in some way, and if they don't, they have a hero power that does it for them. What Paladin, Secret Paladin, why that's a tier 1 deck, is because you don't have to draw. I mean, it's pulling the cards you want to play with it between 2 to 5 or 2 to 4 at a time. The instant you play one card, it's like, I play this card, this represents 5 cards in my deck. Like, that's ridiculous. You're playing so fast. Like, think about that. You played 6 turns, right? So if you go first, you don't have the coin. You've played 6 cards by turn 6. And then, if you've been able to play even more, that's greater value. And then, like, you play the Mysterious Challenger with 0 secrets thus far, you've actually played 11 or you played 10 cards in your deck in 6 turns. That's ridiculous.
Exactly. It basically puts you ahead, like, almost a turn, right? Because by that point, you're in turn 6 and you go into turn 7. Yeah. So basically, it's like getting, like, a double turn 6.
Even if you're pulling out bad secrets, it's still good. That's why Competitive Spirit kept making it into this deck. It's such a win more card.
What do you guys think about the meta right now? Like, do you like where it is? Do you think that it's something that might need addressing, or you hope other decks come up? Or, like, do you think it's a fun spot to be playing in right now?
So I don't like looking at metas and saying like, oh, this is not what it should be, and like this is wrong.
Oh man, I'm with you.
This is just a style, right? This is the vibe that we have right now. And like anyone who has played competitive card games like this one knows that the cycle goes on. And who knows how Hearthstone is gonna evolve? We've talked a lot about it in this show, like whether sets are gonna cycle or not, or they're just gonna keep adding on. But this is just the flavor that we have right now. Like Hearthstone was very different in the beginning than what it is right now. So I don't know. Rather than look at it and being like, oh, this is broken, this is blah, blah, blah. This is just the flavor that we have right now, which is, Patron and Secret Paladin. And like, some people like that, some people don't like that. The game will evolve. I think that right now, the decks that are out there might be frustrating for some people just because, like we thought, what we said, they can kill you outright with no board, and that that is unfun for certain people.
Yeah.
But they're also challenging decks. Like Patron Warrior is a challenging deck to play. Like not everybody can pull off the combos and the crazy plays that deck does. The general knowledge about that deck has increased to the point where it's a lot more common to see good Patron Warriors more than it used to be. But I think regardless, it's still a very hard deck to play. So I'm not opposed with that kind of deck existing. That's my opinion on the metagame right now.
Yeah, I actually agree with you with the emphasis on not like, it feels like if you want, you can always look at the meta as some crisis and some commentary on how Hearthstone is a broken game, which I don't like looking at it that way. And I think sometimes too much of the conversation can be dominated like that. Yeah. On the other hand, when you say this is a current flavor, Patron Warrior's been a really long-lasting flavor as like the top deck in the game.
It's the gobstopper from Wonka, my friends. It lasts forever.
So since this isn't Magic, where it's like, oh, new set is out, Patron Warrior's not here anymore, it is interesting to look at and say, I wonder if this is going to need addressing at some point, or if it's okay having Patron Warrior like as an ever-present threat. So and we'll see if Secret Paladin is the same. I was predicting Secret Paladin would be a short-lasting flavor that gets.
That's what everyone's saying. And this deck is definitely here.
Well, they were saying the same about Patron, right? That Patron is just a fad; it's gonna go away.
Yeah.
Once people learn how to play against it.
Yep.
You know what's crazy is Patron Warrior's gotten to become a very finely oiled machine with very simple deck lists, only varying by like 2 cards now. It used to be like it would vary by like 6 cards. Like people were running Grom and
it's very narrowed down.
Wow.
It's kind of like what it was with Oil Rogue, right? At the beginning, like all these people were trying out different cards and stuff, and then by the end it was very narrowed down.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Deck cards.
I'm so glad you brought that up because Oil Rogue is amazing right now. In my opinion. I think Oil Rogue is sick. Like, it's so good against this deck. Like
against the secrets, I can see.
Oh my word, it's so good. You have no idea.
Because out of one soup, it can wipe your board, which is the problem, right?
They're playing. I think some lists I've seen are running double deck hands. Some lists are running a shade instead of, and then some lists were trying and testing out that new Undercity Valiant. And oh man, that Undercity Valiant, if you can coin that out, is really good.
Oh man, it gets rid of your 1/1s.
It goes toe to toe with Secret Paladin pretty well. It's sometimes if it draws equal or better than Patron, it can go toe to toe pretty easily. It can clear the board. I like Oil Rogue right now, and the guys in Vicious Syndicate are really loving it.
Oil Rogue has always been that deck that is not very popular. You don't see it in the ladder as much, but most of the pro players and good players, especially Rogue fans, have always stuck to the idea that Oil Rogue is still very good, and you can still do very well with that deck. It's another deck that is not easy to play. That deck requires some thought.
But if you play it and you figure it out, like I spent a lot of hours with Vincent on this game. On this deck in particular is super fun. This guy is really fun.
Yeah, Oil Rogue is super flashy too with the amounts of damage and like how you can clear the board. I like the style of that deck.
It feels awesome. Like doing a Blade Flurry for like 7 after hitting them in the face for 7 and doing 14 is pretty sick. Especially if you get just drop a deckhand out of nowhere and then you're getting another 5 damage burst. You're like, Oil
Rogue is another example of that type of deck and why really good players like Oil Rogue, because you can drop the other person down for sometimes even like above 20 health.
With 0 board.
With 0 board, yes.
I think that's why the meta is so interesting. I think Patron's strong right now because Blizzard undervalued their newer cards that were going to be powerful. They thought they were going to dethrone it or be able to handle it. So I think
overvalued.
Yeah, they overvalued their new card tech against these things to slam the meta around.
So I have a different opinion on that. It's slightly similar, but maybe like a slightly different take on that.
All right.
Rather than Blizzard undervaluing the tech cards against this type of deck, I think, and the reason why Patron Warrior or things like Secret Paladin are going to stick for a while is because 1, there's no cycle obviously in Hearthstone, but 2, I feel like when they release an expansion, Blizzard is very conservative on the amount of like power creep and really good cards that they put out at once in one set, because
they're super meticulous about that too.
Because they're night cycling decks out. They don't want to increase the power level of cards too drastically, and they do a lot of what Ben Brode and they call like sideways design, where rather than like blatantly adding power creep, they add cards that are slightly more powerful, but they require conditions or are conditional and that sort of thing. And then I feel like with every set, there's a couple of cards that they have play tested and they put out there because they want to introduce new archetypes or inspire new decks. And these cards are usually the ones that are obviously more powerful, or that maybe at glance are not as powerful, but once people test them out, they turn out to be like super, super good. The amount of these cards is not that big in every set, and they're kind of conservative with this thing. So I feel...
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just to wrap this up. I feel like what ends up happening is that one deck emerges and becomes really powerful, while the rest of the decks kind of stay around the same power level, and there's like not much innovation. And this happens like with one deck or two every expansion. But just because there's no cycling, things kind of stay the same relatively from one expansion to the next with very little change. And even though one deck can warp the meta a little bit around itself, it's not enough to like completely destroy existing archetypes, because they're very careful about this, I feel.
Yeah, Blizzard's in a really tight spot because, people talk about power creep. You don't want power creep, but then every card they create has to compete with every other card that's ever existed in that slot. So if you have a card,
and the
it has
new
to be
ones,
better than Piloted Shredder for a deck, or a 4-mana card has to be better than Piloted Shredder for that deck, has to be better than all the other 4-mana cards for that deck, because you're never getting rid of the old cards, unlike something in Magic.
Which is what's interesting is because they're making players make different decisions. Like, this is a top tier 4-drop Piloted Shredder, but you could also be running an anti-aggro deck where you're just simply outlasting them, where actually a refreshment vendor is probably better for you than a shredder, because you're actually getting some healing. You're getting a 3/5 body on the board, which is almost equivalent to what you're basically getting averages out of your shredder. So like, they're basically making you make different decisions in your deck building stages. The problem is, honestly, I think the biggest problem in Hearthstone is they don't have enough people that are willing to put down their net decks for a few minutes a day and like try to build something on their own. Like, I think there's so many smart people out there. And I'm not saying that people are not good at deck building, or people are like lazy and net decking is a big issue. I think net decking is great. That brings a lot of people to a power level that they can never achieve on their own. I feel like it's almost like what you would say is like a coming alongside, like discipling somebody on how to play the game, right? Or like
and it just makes the game information so much more,
it's like so much more available. Yeah,
available, and because thousands of people can work on a deck, it makes the strategies much more refined.
Yeah, and it does it in a very efficient and fast way.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I like what you're saying in that people, especially people who get to a very high level of play, if they can hone their deck building style and just keep trying things, I think you're right that would create a much more creative and changing environment, because there have to be things out there that people haven't.
That was the biggest thing on my climb to legend that I realized, was how much I didn't know.
Yes, I know, me too.
Like, it's like, okay, so I'm climbing this ladder and I've spent 150 games on this deck. And I know its ins, I know its outs, I know the good matchups, I know the bad matchups. I hate this deck, I love this deck. I can't believe I lost 4 in a row after winning 10 in a row. Like, what the heck is wrong with me? And then you realize, you're like, I think what's happening is A, the mulligan's a problem, or B, I'm drawing poorly, or variance sucks. Like, that's the one thing you have to learn climbing ladder. Variance sucks. You can lose 10 games in a row and still have a good deck.
Yeah, that's a really hard thing.
You can lose 5 games in a row and still have played all those games flawlessly.
Yeah, I mean, that's evidenced by my win streaks, right? Like, going 10 win streaks and then having a bunch of collective games, then having a 7 win streak, followed by a 3-3 matchup, and then following that by an 8 win streak. And then from that point, I didn't go on a high win streak until I hit Legend. I hit 4 wins in a row and got Legend on the final boss. Like, it's there's like the day last. Okay, so last night's when I hit Legend. 2 nights ago, this is Wednesday night. I went on a 7-game win streak and then lost one and won one. And I was like, okay, we can still do this. I'll push for a little bit longer. Or maybe play until 1 a.m. and go to bed. I lose 4 straight. I'm like, I am so hard on tilt. And you know what's worse is the 4 games that I lost straight, 3 of them were good matchups, and that's why I was pissed.
Oh man, I think that's when I saw you go offline.
Yeah, I didn't even talk to anybody. I was like, I'm off.
Yep.
I need to go to bed. I played against MechMage back-to-back, and this is like a 50-50. Actually, officially, it's a 63% win rate right now after everything. And then I went up against Druid, and the dude just bursted the snot out of me, and I was so mad. Because I think Druid is the most broken deck in the game. Like
it's up there.
Druid is doing really good right now. I was playing with it. I was actually having
charge
a pretty good
condition.
success. Yeah,
it's the most unfair deck to play against.
Patron's up there.
Like, I don't like Patron, but I hate Druid. Druid does not let you play the game.
Really? Interesting. I've always found Druid, like, I mean, they do have that 14 damage combo, but I've always found, you know, up to that point, you can be trading back and forth with
I'm telling you, Brian, if they put down an aspirant that you can't deal for 2 turns or 1 turn, and then they play Wild Growth, if they get, or even double Wild Growth, you lose.
Fair point.
Every time I've played against a deck that's gotten an aspirant that sticks plus a second one or plus a Wild Growth, I've lost that game.
Yep. I think I've just had good luck with my aspirant hands.
And if they run Ancient of War, I lose every time. Like, I think I've only won 1 game when they drop the Ancient of War.
Oh, are they running those now?
They're running one, some lists.
Okay.
Oh, sometimes they put a 1-off, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
I thought so aggravating, but it's a good tech card against Secret.
Yeah, although I like more of the traditional list where it's just like full-blown aggro, I'm just doing my plan over here. I like more of that style. Yeah, Druid.
I don't like the list that runs shades. I cut all my shades out.
Really? That always seemed like the key.
I love the double combatant list, probably.
I say this to someone who never plays
shades as well.
Yeah. You cut your shades as well, Andres?
Yeah. Not because they're bad. They used to be a lot better when their Nasus Aspirant wasn't there.
Right.
Because you would actually hit your turn 3 more often. But with their Nasus Aspirant, Wall Growth, and Innervate,
you could just load up with 4 drops.
Yeah, 4 drops becomes pretty much your 2 drop and 3 drop at that point.
That's a really good point. I hadn't considered it from the angle before. But yeah, unless you're like coining out an Aspirant.
Yeah, like your shades become a liability so quick in that deck now.
Yeah. I still see them around all the time, at least in these lower ranks.
Some people still play him. I haven't played it anymore. I think the deck is running good without them now.
Yeah. So before we move on to your topic here, Rob, I wanted to touch on one last point you mentioned, which was the idea of being able to keep track of whether your deck is doing well or not, and then keeping track of variants, matchups, etc. Like, how do you go about doing that? Did you like have charts up for what the good matchups were from different meta reports with your stat tracking? Like, what's your way for kind of evaluating that and not just, you know, saying, I won, I lost, that was annoying?
Yeah, so Brian actually asked a loaded question without realizing it, so I'm going to synopsis this thing in like 1 minute, okay? Maybe 2.
Okay.
This is what I do, all right? So the first and the short bit is I actually have my own spreadsheets that I put up on Google Drive that you can have. I will send Brian a link so he can maybe put it in the show notes for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's basically, I'm all about being super organized. I'm very obsessive compulsive or OCD about how I organize things. And then I also love using Excel. I went to school for being a marketing major, and I just finished up my grad degree 2 months ago in cross-cultural studies. So I'm really organized. I'm all about discipline, and I love tracking results. I'm all about milestones. That's why I track them. Okay, I can say with certainty that there are lots of good Legend players that do not track anything, and the only reason they want to track it is so they can figure out what decks are that don't just feel bad but are bad matchups, right? So Cora, for instance, amazing player. She came up with this list and she didn't track her results, and she hits Legend 6, like rank 6
Everyone has
Legend.
their own styles.
And it's like, you know, she's a college student. I can get it, right? I can dig it. So what I did is towards the end of the season, the last 2 or 3 days, I started tracking on paper to minimize the amount of time I'm alt-tabbing in and out of my spreadsheets. All right? So the quick of it is you have to figure out what stats are important for you to understand that is worth putting on paper, putting in a spreadsheet, right?
Right.
Hearth Tracker does a lot more. Tracobot, I've heard, is probably the best one, but I cannot get it to work on my computer. So I'm working with
Deck Tracker. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I've actually heard that Deck Tracker and Hearth Stats are like far insubordinate to Tracobot.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Tracobot looks amazing. It tracks you, not only the games you're playing, but it tracks what rank you played that game and what rank your opponent was. That's cool, so good. Like, that stats is what you want to know.
Does it have a quick way to add what archetype you're facing instead of just class?
Everything it auto does for you, and then you can go in and edit anything you want, which is amazing, right? That's so it's like super automated, but it also has full customization.
I'm going to check that out.
Tracobot?
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Tracobot. I'll add a link in the
I don't know why it's not working for me, but everyone I know that has a tracker within Vicious Syndicate uses it and loves it. So
your laptop hates you.
What's that? Yeah, my laptop does hate me. It's been like... okay, that's a side story. We won't get there. My computer is a butthole. We'll just put it at that. All right.
I've learned that when we were trying to work on logos.
Yeah. All right, so what I did on the Legend Climb the last 3 days to minimize the time I spent in this was trying to track at least 6 to 15 games at a time on paper. Best way to do it is super quick, right? So you open up your match, you queue in on ladder. You don't write anything down, okay? Mm-hmm. The only thing you do is you say, Uther versus Garrosh. So you write down warrior, right? So I write down warrior. Mm-hmm. And then I check at my rank in case I forgot how pleb I am at rank 18. And then write down rank 18, right? Mm-hmm. And then I write down, all right, so I look at the coin flip. Do I go first? Do I go second? I write down first or second right after my rank.
Right.
And then I leave another dash and separate each of these categories, right, in one line item. Then I play. I see an armor smith. Okay, this could be anything. And then I see, a warbot. Okay, this is a mech warrior. This is Zalae's list that's going to try to burst me down with Arcanite Reapers. So just the fact of me trying to identify what this deck is for my Hearth stats, I'm actually identifying the deck in order to play better against it because I know what it can do.
For sure.
Right.
And then the second thing is... what I brought up earlier in the show about the slams and being in Control Warrior is scary because now you can't figure out what that deck is until turn 6 when they drop Emperor and then you're already screwed. Yeah. So what the best way to do that I found in that matchup was to play against Patron 100% of the time because my deck is 8 and 3 against Control Warrior. So I don't care what they're going to do. I'm going to burst the snot out of you until you throw down that Shield Maiden and then I'm going to eat you. So,
but you care of their patron because...
But exactly. So I'm going to play around everything that I can lose to in a patron list, which ironically ends up being the same kind of play style.
Yeah, usually.
So either way, you identify what that game is, and then you leave another dash after that. You just dismiss it from your mind. You know what you're playing. And then when the game's over, you write down an L or W, depending if you win or lost, and you queue again. So the best part about tracking stats is not just like figuring out when you win or lose or play and like your variations and your win rates and blah blah blah, but actually identifying what the deck is you're playing against, and then also you're actually calming yourself when you do lose because you're able to see that you've only played 3 games. I need to queue 7 more before I log these into my deck tracker or whatever. I've actually played 10 games, so now I can say, all right, so the last 10 games I played, I'm 7-2. So this is fine, even though that loss to those druids back-to-back felt like garbage.
Look at it in a broader context.
Right.
Yeah.
Rather than like being tilted because you lost the last 2 or something like that.
But the reason you track going first or second is in the overall stats. Once you've logged about 25 to 50 games, you can start seeing, okay, so if I played this deck 10, 20 times, this one archetype, and I win. I'm gonna use Druid again because I played them a crap ton. Right, I played 15 games against Druid this month, which is a lot. That's like over an hour of playing Druid, or against Druid. Sorry, and I went 11-4 against Druid. But the Druid losses feel soul crushing. So I have a 73% win rate. So think about that, right? 73%. That's 11 wins. And I got the coin 6 times. Now, the thing that sucks on my lists and everything is unless you have separate line items for each game, you won't know which of those games that you got the coin you won or which of the games you got the coin you lost.
Right.
So that's what sucks. But the nice thing is I did track my Druid results on the last days on paper. Mm-hmm. So that's the one thing that's problematic with my my scenario. Right. But this is really great for getting a quick percentage right next to stuff because you can just type it into an Excel spreadsheet and get an overall thing.
That's cool. Tracking your stats, I think, has definitely some benefits to it. Like you said, when you're actively thinking about what your opponent is playing and you're paying maybe attention to their mulligan because you're tracking your stats and you're focused on the game. These are things that really good players already do for every game. Mm-hmm. Tracking your stats definitely helps with that because you're actively forcing yourself to think about this and be involved in the game. I definitely think it's a good idea if you're having trouble with this sort of thing. You're wrapping your mind about the other class and focusing on every game. We've talked about this in the show before. It definitely helps with your win percentage.
Have you guys talked on the show about watching your opponent's mulligan?
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. That's how I started getting so many wins.
So do you just always wait for them to mulligan before you do?
Dude, I'm telling you, like, if I'm playing against a paladin and they mulligan everything, or they mulligan everything of a 1 card, that's an aggro Secret Pally.
Right.
If they...
Yeah, you definitely can. Like, a Warlock is a
if they don't mulligan anything, or they mulligan, like, 1-2 cards, I'm pretty sure that's a mid-range Secret Pally. And they're holding, a Challenger and a mini-bot.
Right.
And if they're a handlock and they dump everything... you can basically assume that almost every handlock... Like, every Warlock is a handlock, initially. And then when they drop their first 2 plays... Or first 3 plays, and it's not a zoo list, then you are playing as handlock, or they tap on turn 2, usually.
Yeah. I remember we had a large discussion before about this, because I still think they shouldn't let you see your opponent's mulligan, because that makes the optimal strategy. Everyone just needs to wait for 60 seconds before starting the game.
Yeah, they actually did address that. That's in the works for them to try to change after. But the thing is, you can't change that mid-season when people are playing the pro scene. They have to wait until BlizzCon's over.
You gotta wait.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's dumb how it is right now.
I think they are changing that.
They actually said something about that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I remember them saying something about that.
I hope so. I'll have to verify that because, like you,
I can't verify anything, but I will say, like, definitively, I feel like that is going to change. Like, that's something that you can't ignore for 2 seasons.
It's kind of broken. It is broken because the best strategy is just to wait, literally, and kind of have a staring contest until the game starts, and that's not a good thing in my opinion.
I don't see it as a problem. I think it's that long, and I think it adds another layer of information that you can gather. That isn't completely obvious, so I'm not opposed.
The only thing I do like about it is the fact that it does separate the pros from the not pros.
It does.
Like if before you hit rank 10, I see people mulligan from everything in their hand to any like 1 to 2 cards within 3 seconds, and it's just like, well, you made my mulligan stage a lot shorter. That's nice, thanks.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, we've had the conversation before, and I get both sides of it. I'm just still pro.
Basically, any information that you can gather from the mulligan is only gonna.
It's free.
You're only gonna be able to gather, and you're only gonna be able to gather that information if you yourself already have a deep knowledge about.
Oh, that's so true. That's a great point.
Yeah, it's like, they got rid of 3 cards. That means they drew 3 cards. And
exactly.
I don't really know what else.
Like a person that doesn't have a deep understanding of the game is not gonna gather anything from that.
Right. That's why meta reports are so helpful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You just gotta think about what the player's trying to get, right? Like you have to know what the player wants. So this is great, Andres. So I'm gonna go ahead and transition real quick into what my topic is.
Perfect.
If that's okay.
That's so I was just about to do that.
Yeah. So like the reason that's a perfect idea is like if you don't know what's coming, you can't win. Like it's just like
it's like shooting arrows in the dark, right?
It's like I'm playing this deck because it's strong, so I will win. Like that logic is garbage.
Yep.
Like, I'm playing Secret Paladin, so I should win. Like, no. Like, you're playing Secret Paladin against a hunter. No matter what kind of hunter, they're going to beat you. Like, the only list you might win against is a mid-range Paladin if you go, Challenger into Boom into Tyrion. Like, Midrange Hunter eats you. Face Hunter.
Well, there's always variants to allow you to win, especially if you play better than the opponent. But
you are so right.
Expecting to win every time because of your deck.
You are so right. Yeah, that's right. So here's the kind of the big topics, right? So this is my list is basically what do you want to do to get to Legend, right?
Okay. How many list points do we have?
These are like
how many bullet points?
Bullets. So they're not even like there's no discussion on them.
Yes.
There's like maybe 2 of them that have discussion. Okay.
Go for it.
The first 2 and then like the last or the third to last one. So the first one is know what you're playing against.
And that's what we were just talking about.
Yeah, we're just talking about it. Very important because if you don't know what you're playing against, you can't formulate a plan.
Yeah.
And if you don't formulate a plan, you're already playing this game wrong.
Right. And like you said, meta reports, big thing into that because it lists all the different popular archetypes for each
and
class.
the people are going to be like, well, if I read the meta report, I know what decks I'm playing against, maybe, but if they have 3 archetypes, how am I supposed to know which one I'm playing against? That's a great question. Like, that's the questions you should be asking. The problem is you don't really follow through with finding the answers. Yeah. So finding the answers is realistically like not just looking at the meta report. Look at what's in the deck. Look at what the deck does. What's the deck's win condition? What are they trying to pull on their first 3 turns? That's what you should be looking for in the mulligan to figure out what kind of deck it is.
Yeah, and every card they play is like a clue and starts narrowing it down. It's like, okay, so they played this card. Well, that's in 2 of the 3 archetypes, so I know it's one of those 2. Okay, now they played this one. That eliminates that card now.
Right, so that also translates not just to mulligan stage, but that actually translates to a lot of decks on how you play your deck and how your oiled machine works.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to drive the car in reverse to get to where you're going to go. Okay, so... It feels bad, man, but it's going to work, okay? So, like, you have to know your enemy so you can know how to work your own machine. You adjust your deck to what's going on in their deck as well.
Yeah.
The second point with that is actually not just that, like, okay, so we covered mulligan and identifying your deck so you know how to best, like, defend against them. And then you also know what the weaknesses are of that deck. Like, what decks they beat, what decks they don't beat. And then if you don't know that, then you can really quickly figure out by playing against it a couple times. But you also want to know what deck you're playing against so that you can play around the next 2 turns at minimum.
Yep, that's huge.
The 2-turn window, the 2 to 3 turn window is like the chess aspect of Hearthstone.
Yep.
Even though you have the variance of cards in your hand, you have to know what the options are for them. They played 2 Frostbolts. This card's safe. I'm going to play Darnassus Aspirant because it's a great play. Then I get to maybe bait out a Fireball with what's on the deck. Oh, they played 2 Fireballs. Well, that's great. They don't have any Fireballs yet. Well, wait, I'm not playing against Freeze Mage. I'm playing against Tempo. So they can drop Antonidas and then wreck me because they have a bunch of one drops and it's turn 10. Or 1-drop spells. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first point. Second point is learn to play different. Like, don't learn your deck to play the deck. Learn the deck to play against that deck. And play that deck so you can learn against other decks. So this translates to a bunch of different points that I'll just blaze through. Like, playing differently means you know when you need to adjust your playstyle. You know when what your win conditions are and when you draw them. You know what cards are in your deck that are tech cards and which cards... they are actually the cards that are replaceable that you can swap in and out. That's very important. Knowing that BGH is a tech card versus Harrison is huge. Being willing to change your deck if you know another deck better. So I actually went on like a 5-6 games stretch where I just swapped to Hot Form's tournament deck that was a mage deck that was awesome. And
the Tempo Mage?
Oh, dude, it's sick.
Yeah,
double water elemental. Are you kidding me? That just dismantles Patron. It's so good.
Yeah, that's what I used this season, and it was really good.
Oh yeah, that's great. So just know that it's okay to swap decks even if you lose a couple ranks because you're learning that deck a little bit better, and you're also learning how that deck matches up with other decks, so you can actually understand the meta a little bit better. Yeah. You need to know what your percentage is of drawing certain cards. I'm sorry. You have to know what the percentage is of you drawing a card that is a win condition versus how many cards are in the deck. If I have 10 cards in the deck and I've played my Mysterious Challenger and I need to draw Boom on turn 7 or I need to draw Tyrion, I actually have a 10% chance that I'm going to draw the card I need. So you can actually use that variance to play in a risky matchup, which goes into the next couple points, is playing risky. You need to take big risks in bad matchups. Like, you have to. if you're in a bad matchup and you're already unfavored to lose, you just play the super risky play, because if you play the super risky play and they don't have the exact thing that they usually have, you win the game.
Right. But if you wait out for the traditional game to play out and you auto-play your cards, then you're
that's right.
Digging your own grave.
That's right. That's exactly right. Because you know that you're going to lose if you play this card and they have the card that they need. But if you play another card that they might have a card, you've actually, and then you play a card, you're like, man, if I play this card now and I draw, and I have a 10% or a 20% chance to draw this card next turn, dude, they're toast. And it's a bad matchup, dude, I'm going for it. It's like Moltens or no Moltens. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to play one of two ways. I'm going to play, this is the worst case scenario, and I need to drop my Repentance to kill that thing, and I'm going to win and actually won a game like that. Or you're going to need to know, like, I don't have Repentance right now, and they're at 15, and I can drop them to 8. So am I going to do it or am I not? Are you going to grow a pair and go for it, or are you just going to like sit there on your cards and pray to the gods that Handlock doesn't do what Handlock does? Like, it's kind of like you're jumping into water hoping not to get wet at that point. You know what I mean?
That's a very fair point, and I just want to touch a little bit on it because I think you're right. I think that knowing what your opponent's doing and knowing other decks allows you to, I call it seeing the light, right? When you're at a loss, or when maybe you're not even lost, but you're just playing the game and you know what your opponent is doing, you're able to recognize certain situations that you can exploit or take advantage of. Whether if you didn't know that, you might not be able to take advantage of those things. For example, if you know you're playing against Patron Warrior and turn 6 is coming up, you know that more than likely he's gonna want to play a Thaurissan. So you can maybe play I don't know, maybe your Azure Drake, for example, because you know he's not gonna want a Death Spite, he's gonna want a Thaurissan. Yeah. So you exploit that situation to sneak in your Azure Drake.
Yeah, exactly. You force him in a bad play position.
Exactly. Either he plays Thaurissan and leaves your Drake up, which is great for you, or he doesn't play Thaurissan, which is also great for you.
Exactly.
So it's like
that's so good.
Like knowing, it's like knowing that sort of thing. When you know your opponent's game plan, you can use it against them.
Dude, that's such a great point. And like, that's actually on my list. So you stole it from me, but you didn't steal it from me, because it's a really good point, right?
I'm sorry. Well, I was doing it in reference.
No. That's totally right. Cause...
let's see if we can guess the rest on it. Quick.
No, it's so good though. Like, that's what goes with like these 2 points of playing risky and knowing percentages go together. Like, it really does, right? Like, you know your opponent. They're gonna play Thaurissan if they have it, and if they don't, they're not. Like, that's Patron on turn 6, okay? So, and that goes with our previous points of knowing your opponents, knowing what decks do, knowing and planning to play against Patron every time you see a warrior, even though control can be an option. Because what happens is, you play a card that may be suboptimal if they weapon it, but you're drawing a card, like the Azure Drake, for example, in Druid is a great one, right? Or even in Tempo Mage, because lots of cards play Azure Drake, or decks. So then, just like you said, if they drop the Thaurissan, you're like, yo, I just got a great trade, you know? Or you have something on the board that's really great. And then this also bleeds into the same effect. Like, if Patron is going to try to get a frothing out the whole game and wreck you in like an OTK, then you need to start playing bad. And by that, I mean, you need to stop trying to control the board with your Dragon Priest, because you're going to lose. I think Dragon Priest can beat Patron. You just have to play less cards, and you have to draw less cards. You need to play the fatigue game, and you need to just drop your
eliminate
clerics.
all threats one by one.
Right. So dropping a cleric and losing it on turn 1 is a great play, because you're using up a weapon charge and you're burning their coin. Like, that's so good.
Yeah. You can get through all his cards, especially because they can't really get a win condition without a board. Like one turn win condition would be extremely hard, especially with you
and eating damage from cards that aren't patrons is great. Yeah, you need to do it. So,
holding stuff, even like Azure Drake and Holy Nova for a turn 10, 3 damage clear.
You're so right, Bryan.
Like that.
I was just about to say that. Yep. So
that's definitely true.
Here's another really interesting thing that I think we sort of touched on, but you actually putting your opponent in a tough spot can actually be better play than pushing for damage for lethal.
Yeah.
Because you have this is a controversial point, just because you have those chances where it's like, well, you just said make the risky play, and you also said putting your opponent in a tough spot is the good play. It's the play to do. But sometimes it's like that sometimes variance rule, right?
Like we were talking about, that always ties in with your game plan, right? And your opponent's game plan. Like sometimes taking the risky play is the right one because it will put your opponent's deck on that turn on a tough spot and will make him do maybe a subpar decision.
Dude, well, it's similar to saying always going face or always controlling board is right. It's about knowing when to make that switch in a game.
That's
exactly. And the only way to know when to do a switch is if you know how to play against your opponent. If you know your deck and if you know their deck and you know how to exploit their weaknesses as well as their strengths, because you can exploit their strengths, right? You can set them up so that on their best turns they can do him however they want him, or if they play the best turn, it might benefit you. You can like set up those things in this game.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
So don't you guys think like this is like a side point, but like, don't you think that Blizzard is leaving a lot of these super broken decks in because they're hard to play?
I wonder about that. Yeah, I think they kind of work.
Like they're challenging their audience to learn the game. Like that's really freaking smart on a business level, and even smarter on a player base level. Like we want our players to figure this game out and not play Face Hunter. Like Face Hunter is a bad deck, not because it's fast and it wins games and it's good. But it's a bad deck because it doesn't require a whole lot of brain power. Like they want the deck, they want people to make decisions during the game and not just like put a sticky note to cover their opponent's board and go face, right?
Because Patron Warrior, you can say, it doesn't matter what your opponent does, you just win the game, like you said, by playing solitaire. But it's a very hard game of solitaire.
You lose a lot of games, yeah. It's like 3-card solitaire that you can't always win.
Yeah, and I think they know this because I can't remember when I read it. It was an interview with some of the guys, but they were talking about Patron Warrior, about nerfing them, because in every single interview they ask him if they're gonna nerf Patron Warrior.
Oh, it's so annoying when they ask that.
But basically, the response was that Patron Warrior was a very strong deck, and they were definitely surprised by how much stronger it was than they initially thought it was going to be. But also, they said that in their internal stats, Patron Warrior is not like off the charts. At least not like the Undertaker Hunter was, or like
it's not like an 80 to 90% win rate, right? Like if it's a 70% win rate, that may be okay.
And I'm willing to bet like even like in the lower ranks, Patron might have like a negative win ratio.
Right.
I think in tournaments
because they have so many free cards that you can get, right?
Yeah,
like there's so many cards in that deck that are just like freebies. That's what
it's not an expensive deck to build. Yeah, it's not an expensive. You can build it pretty easily if you're new to the game.
And you have the wings, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like, okay, so Patron. Last thing on Patron is like the only reason I think that they actually need to change Patron isn't because of its sheer power, but just because like I feel like Blizzard really just needs to change their meta again. Like, for 2 seasons of meta, they've actually been able to see a lot of pro players play it, and I think even the pros are getting kind of salty about how this deck is just so strong for so long. They just want something new to play. And then the other thing is, like, I feel like they left it in the game because even though it has good and bad matchups, just like every deck, and it has so much sheer power, if it draws it, it can, ace somebody, but it's just like...
Yeah,
it's featuring a lot of their newer cards. Like that's super awesome, and like they're doing such a great job.
Honestly, if they were to change anything to Patron, I wouldn't necessarily nerf anything, but I would somehow impose a limit on how big the frothings can get.
Yeah,
so I heard an interesting tech on that too. Is like that you have to either nerf the frothings or you need to make the patrons 4 attacks so they can't get the buff off of the war song.
Yeah, basically just reduce like the amount of burst damage that you can get sometimes.
Right.
Because I think the way that you can finish off with the frothings and the stuff like that, I think is still pretty cool, and I'm okay with that wid condition personally.
Yeah.
And I know some other people are not.
What if the frothing got +1 attack if it gained, if it gained that attack on friendly minions taking
exactly
damage?
What I was going to suggest.
Or the other, like enemy minions playing.
Yeah, I thought of the same thing. Yeah, that's a good point.
You can do it in many different ways, or you could even do it like maybe like reduce the health from the Warzone commander and make it maybe like a 2/2.
I would say it dies to
Whirlwind.
Not a bad
and when
idea.
he dies, it doesn't give haste anymore.
Yeah, that more solves the Grim Patron problem over the frothing problem.
Yeah, then that way maybe
damage.
you could only like whirlwind once, or maybe leave the same health, but if he dies, you can attack. So that way maybe you can only whirlwind twice.
Yeah.
Or that sort of thing.
There are definitely things they can do.
Yeah, because right now, like, it gets insane sometimes. Like, you can do like 50 plus damage.
There's just so many things that do 1 damage to the whole board. It makes the deck powerful, right? That's the real issue. It's not that like these cards are so broken and change those 2 cards. The fact is they have so many cards in their arsenal that they can do damage to proc that stuff. Like, that's ridiculous.
You could remove that end of it as well.
Like, if they change those 2 cards, people are still going to get those huge card combos with just playing Rampage. Like, you can still do it. You have Emperor. So
The last note I have on Patreon before we get back to your list here, Rob, is I think it's kind of awesome for people who say, high level play of Hearthstone can be dull. I mean, maybe it can be a little bit monotonous sometimes, but the fact that Grim Patron and Mysterious Challenger are the 2 cards that are defining the meta is hilarious to me. Those are ridiculous cards. They're like gimmick cards when people were looking at it before the release. So I love that they are defining.
Right. So like Grim Patron, the only reason people said that was a dark horse is because they didn't actually say that they were planning on changing Warsong Commander, and that was the biggest
totally
to anything, right?
But it's also just a fun card. Like, even whether people predicted it would be good or not, like, it was one of the crazy ones.
Weeks after they released that card. It's so hype.
Totally. Yeah. So I just think that's a cool though. So what's next on your list?
Do we have anything left?
Yeah,
on your
there's
list?
only a couple more things. Know when to wait and do nothing.
So true.
Okay, that is very true. Actually, that's a good.
That's one of the weirdest things to say. But like, if they have a 5/10 rooted Ancient of War, and I've got like a muster for battle, basically with 2 charges on my Light's Justice and a mini bot. Don't be stupid. Don't attack into that crap. He's got to deal with your board. If you take 5 damage to the dome, so be it. Maybe you'll draw Tyrion. Maybe you have actually a 5% chance to draw that card. That's pretty good.
Yep. Wait for an answer. Also, don't it extends to not overextending to people's boards. Like, sometimes don't play more minions just because you have them in hand, because they might have an AoE coming. You got to think about what they're doing next.
Very true. Or I was gonna say, like, sometimes it's not as obvious as that. Like, in Ancient of War, you have only low drops that you have to throw them all and not finish it off. Like, sometimes that can be a little more obvious to be like, well, I should probably not throw them in. But like you said, Bryan, sometimes your opponent doesn't play much in his turn or anything and passes back the turn, and you still have a board slightly threatening, and you can choose to put in more threats on the board or not to, and is very delicate, and you need to be very aware of when you should be putting out more threats, when you should be holding back. Because you're right, your opponent might be doing the smart thing and waiting for holding onto his light bomb or his shadow flame or hellfire or whatever for you to overextend and then wipe you even more, and then he'll be on the upper hand.
Or contrary, like baiting out that removal by just like dropping dudes instead of playing cards, right? Because you still keep your card advantage.
That's probably, in my opinion, one of the most important skills to learn, is knowing what cards does your opponent have that can benefit from you playing stuff. So in Grim Patron, that's anything with less than 3 attack, they can hit patrons off of and get more patrons.
Playing a Haunted Creeper in that matchup is such a liability.
Light Bomb and stuff can be bad. Or even stuff, mind control tech. You start reaching the 4 creature thing, they can steal one of your creatures. So it's like, what card, or Unleash the Hounds. That's one of those worst about seeing. And I would fill up my board and realize I gave the guy lethal, because he can suddenly get more hounds because my board
Unleash
is bigger.
double kill command turn 9.
Yeah, so you just have to think of what are the ways that my opponent can benefit. And there are some decks that it's like, nope, they're out of ways to benefit, so I should just keep building up my board.
And that comes with tracking what your opponent's doing the whole game. Like, not just tracking stats, but, dude, did he play 2 Frostbolts or not? Then play the card with 3 health. Just do it.
That's actually my favorite part of Deck Tracker, is that it has a UI that counts what people have played.
Yeah, TrackleBot's got the same setup.
Yeah, it's so useful to know. I mean, if you want to work on memorizing it, go for it, or writing it down, but just getting that information in your head and at least tracking like the AoE and important stuff is crazy.
Right, that's a great thing for new players though, isn't it? Yeah, like,
totally.
It's so good. Like, that's a good point, Bryan. I'm going to bring that up on my episode tomorrow, because like, people need to get a deck tracker just to check that stuff out. Like, you know, what cards does my opponent play? I can look at this little tiny screen. That's great.
Deck Tracker also has the percentage of you drawing a card if you have one.
Yeah, it does. It does, and so does TrackleBot. But like, the great thing too is Okay, so this is the best part of my Legend experience was like the fact that I got 3 hours of coaching and it didn't benefit me on ladder. Like,
okay.
And I'll say it this way, it didn't benefit me in the traditional sense where you're actually gaining wins and and loss ratio where you're pushing through to Legend. I actually didn't change rank.
So during the coaching.
The coaching session, I have the stats for it right here. I actually went 8 and 6, which is pretty demoralizing, right? Because you went up. That basically just means you went up 2 stars.
It's fine.
Yeah.
So, but I learned a lot of the stuff about the deck and a lot about the mulligan stage, and I learned a lot about, what are my win conditions. Like, okay, so like, granted, you could say your win conditions are pretty simple in this deck, but like, you just don't understand how using kings for a win condition is so powerful. And sitting on your weapon for like 6 turns is like insane value. Like, I won a game because I sat on a True Silver for 6 turns. I'm not joking you. I beat a druid because I sat. Yeah, I did not use that second charge of a True Silver to push for 4 damage to push for lethal. But I removed a minion and got lethal the next turn because I drew kings. It's like, sorry, dude. Like, it's better to sit on your stuff. All right, so that goes to my next point. You have, if you want Legend, you have to put in the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that is one of the biggest things to know about going to Legend. You have to be willing to put in the time. And you don't
understand what this is until you try it. Because when you hit rank 5, it sucks. Like, no win streaks is insanely difficult.
No win streaks for on the way up. Oh, you mean once you get to 5, you don't have win streaks anymore?
Yeah, you have to go positive. Your win rate is everything after rank 5.
Totally. Yeah.
So streaks, like I was saying, like going on 10, 7, 8, and 4 game win streaks, even a couple 3 game win streaks is the world of difference in how you grind. So if you're losing, like if you lose like 4 or 5 games in a row and you're sub rank 5, that's okay because you can win, 6 in a row and you got back up to where you were. But if you're rank 1 and you lose 6 games in a row and then you win 6 games in a row, you win even.
Yes, I know. It's hard to get into that mentality.
Yeah, and I will say that this may not be everyone's experience, but I spent the most time on ladder between rank 5 and rank 3. I spent the least amount of time on rank 2 and rank 1. Rank 1 was the easiest.
3 was my wall when I was playing Zoo.
Yeah, usually 3 and 2 are the hardest for me.
Yeah, that's an interesting experience though. Like, I honestly did not think you could get from 3 to Legend in one night. Because of my experiences, I'm like, that is such a grind, and it's interesting to hear for you that wasn't the grind for you. Well, that wasn't like tough.
That's true, Brian. I would agree with you. I would say that it's true, but the fact of the matter is, I was surprised at the decks I was playing against once I hit rank 1 because I was playing against a lot of low, like 3,000 to 4,000 Legend players that just don't give a crap about what they're playing.
You got to Legend yesterday, right? Which was the last day of the season. Yeah. The last day of the season is a really weird day around rank 1.
The last 2 days in particular.
Yeah, because you're playing against like most of the lower end of the Legend ladder,
right?
And they're playing just like the craziest decks.
Yeah, but I did beat somebody who was rank 400 Legend last night, and that was like highlight of my night.
That's so cool.
It was sick.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Okay, so here's the last couple things. These are pretty much self-explanatory.
All right.
Do not be afraid to get help or join a community. Like, this is huge. Yes. This is why I met Bryan, why I met Andres. This is why I joined the TAC community. This is why you support stuff on Patreon. This is why you ask questions on Reddit. This is why you sit down on Tempest Storm and read. This is why you friend people and don't curse them out after a game when you lose to them.
I curse out my entire friends list daily. I mean, don't give bad advice.
I wait for it daily. It's a rite of passage, pretty much.
Yeah, I just like adding people. I'm like, dude, that deck was insane. Like last night, I tried adding this Control Warrior that like I smashed him, and then he smashed me the next game, and we played each other back to back. Same thing happened with another Secret Pally. Same scenario. Yeah, and he hit Legend after he added me. And I was like, dude, congrats. And he's like, yeah, dude, you're so close. And I'm asking him, like, dude, when's the ladder reset? Because this is like midnight Eastern time. I thought the ladder's going to reset. And I'm playing a freeze mage. And I'm like, dude, I don't have enough time to hit Legend. I have to win 4 games in a row. And then Eve's like, it doesn't reset until midnight
like
Eastern Central Time, or it's
like 4 a.m.
Oceanic time. And I was like, oh, sick! I got like 3 more hours to play. I'm gonna push. I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna get a water bottle. I'm gonna go camp out in the bathroom for a little bit and just relax. Something like that. So you just got to put in the time, and you got to join a community, and you got to talk to people.
Yeah, that changed hugely for me talking to other people, because for pretty much the first year of my Hearthstone career, I pretty much just played solo.
Yeah.
Just because I had fun that way, and Hearthstone does not support growing a community within the game very well at all.
Yeah,
right,
you're
but
right
at the
about
same
that.
time, like it makes community so easy, outside of the game.
Oh yeah, it's so easy to talk about. Like, it is one of the most easy to discuss games ever. You discuss an action game, it's a lot harder for me to discuss heroes with someone, but discussing Hearthstone, you can literally just watch someone play and talk through every play. With the spectating.
I have a funny story about that, actually, Brian.
Oh, really?
I was in line to go to Mount Emei, which is EMEI in China, and the guy in front of me has his smartphone and he's playing on the Asia realm, and he's playing in Arena, and he actually knows the English word for arena. And so he's like, arena. I was like, oh, and he has an Anthonitis, and I was like, oh, Archmage, and he's like, yeah. So like, he drops the Archmage and double arcane missiles and aces the guy when he has like 2 health left, and I was like, oh, nice work.
Like, that is something that completely translates.
It was so cool. Like, I had so many, and like, I'm wearing this wooden
Hearthstone transcending cultures.
Yeah, I have this wooden Hearthstone cardback necklace. And I'm talking about Hearthstone, and there's these 2 guys walking next to me as I'm going into class to teach. And this guy like looks over and he's like, Hearthstone. And I point at this necklace, and he's like, oh, and he says the Chinese word for it, which I can't remember. And I was like, yeah. And I go, Tiddler Celestial. And he's like, oh, because he follows the pro scene, and he's the best player in China.
Yeah,
so like,
he
transcending
is.
culture just by knowing people's names is pretty big.
That's so cool.
It was a very cool experience.
And for the second half of that point, Hearthstone makes it hard, but there are so many communities that have been built around Hearthstone that, like, it's just like, even keeping up with great podcasts is so hard because there are so many at this point.
Yeah, there are,
which is why I'm so happy whenever people listen to this one, because it's like, man, you guys have so many great choices. But
within the last, like, I think, Brian, when you started your podcast up until today, I think there has, including your podcast, I think there's actually been 5 new podcasts for Hearthstone.
It feels like maybe I just started noticing it more. It's like when you buy a car and see it everywhere. It seems like right around when we started our podcast, it was like a flood of new podcasts.
You're right.
And I wasn't going to do mine. I thought I was going to try to bug you guys and be a part of your stuff, and then like jump in an episode once a month with you guys. Maybe that was my goal.
Totally.
But then I ended up starting with these guys from that I taught in China. I started a comedy podcast, and it's been a blast. And then I was just getting frustrated because I actually messaged the guys at Golden Wisp asking if they had wanted another host, because they have like 2. And I was like, I don't really care about the pro scene as much, but I really want to do a podcast super bad. And there's people on the podcast like realm that would love to do it that don't currently do it in our hangout. And I was like, I could get at least one person, but I don't know how consistent it would be. Right. And like Velen's Chosen just happened. Like, I met Andrew on Twitter after asking, does anybody want to run a podcast? And this guy from Oklahoma that's been following my stuff on Twitter for Hearthstone and retweeting him, he's like, I'd love to do that. I was like, I don't know you, but I don't really care. I want to do this podcast really bad. And he's a part of the community.
I love it when people start their own stuff. And that's why I was so excited when I heard you were doing Velen's Chosen, because it's so cool to see other people get on board and, just make something from scratch, get everything going for a podcast. And
absolutely.
I am glad that's been working out for you.
Yeah.
So far.
Plus, if you guest star on people's shows, you get content for 2 episodes. So it's like,
exactly. Precisely. It makes everything so much easier.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the last couple things. These are super easy points. This is kind of like a mandatory point. I'm just going to say it says, make sure you win when you're in good matchups. If you're in a good matchup and you lose, that should feel bad, and that should feel.
You should look at why.
What's that?
You should look at why. Like, if you can see the replay or something, really think about what you did to lose that matchup, because there's probably a point that you played incorrectly.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. That's the value of saying I will win this match, and when you lose, you should feel really bad, because that usually means when you lose a bad matchup or when you lose a good matchup, that you have a few reasons why. And you can identify those very efficiently. So losing I will say that winning a good matchup is normal, and losing a good matchup is extremely valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I said make sure you win, because then it forces your brain into,
taking notice of it.
And just taking notice and making it feel bad and saying, okay, now why? So this is like a good matchup loss is equivalent to playing 10 games in my own mind. Like playing 10 games against anything that's maybe a good matchup or a bad matchup and not really knowing anything is like you get the same amount of information from losing a good matchup.
Yeah. And that's also amazing. I love to do, if you do have a deck tracking software that supports it, if they have like a replay feature where you can see the turns turn by turn, like Deck Tracker or something like that, which additionally shows what was in your
You can break down what you
turns.
were thinking on those turns.
You can look at every single turn and say, was there something better I could do here? Was there something better I could do here? What is it? And I've found specific turns that I say, okay, in the future, I'm going to do that differently.
Yeah. So, and then you can even identify you lost this game on this turn.
Oh, yeah. It's totally possible. Or sometimes you can say, there's literally nothing I could have played to change that matchup.
Yeah, sometimes Tempo Mage or Casino Mage gets the God draw, plus they get the God RNG, and you're like, I lost that game. Okay, cool. Queue up again. Let's go.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's actually a lot of peace of mind a lot of the times. Like, knowing when you lost and they had a perfect hand and you drew bad, like, that is the epitome of variance. So, queue up and go again.
Yep.
Okay, this is something that my friend and maybe yours, his name is Goddraw, ironically enough, and he plays for Vicious Syndicate, and he's the guy who coached me for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
He won one of the two, I think 2 weeks ago, he won Tuesday Night Hype.
Nice.
And,
very cool.
He basically tells me, he says, why would you try to get 80% of a lethal, which basically means you're trying to get really close to killing them and they have like 2 or 3 health left, to give them a decision that they have to make on their next turn. 80% lethal now in a weaker board instead of getting 100% lethal next turn.
This is the equivalent of when people first start the game and they play Arcane Missiles on turn 1 and don't understand why you shouldn't do that. That's the same principle. And I noticed, I came very close to making that mistake. Unless you have a way to close it out that you like wouldn't have mana for otherwise, unless you push for the damage this turn.
Yeah. And that's why Secret Pally actually takes a brain once you hit rank 10. It does take a brain to play, because it's actually better sometimes to drop a mini bot and True Silver on turn 6 than playing the Mysterious Challenger. Like, it's a hard fact. Like, you can set up the game to win by having 2 cards on the board and them having nothing, and you drop the Challenger. Like, that's super strong. The fact that the Challenger doesn't get the buff is usually better, because then they can either get deathed, or they can get BGH'd, or whatever, or they can get fireballed.
I remember we talked about this in the show before, where we were talking about the style of the deck, where a lot of people were saying just play the Mysterious Challenger on 6 no matter what, but I was kind of being an advocate of like, no, you need to play this with a board. Playing it by itself is usually not very effective.
And playing Mysterious Challenger into a Repentance is actually sometimes a good thing, believe it or not. Because then you're drawing out their secrets with a big card, and it actually doesn't matter, because you're in playing Mysterious Challenger, you're innately protecting it because you're dropping a 2/1 in front of it, like with Taunt. Like, you kind of have to think about, when I play Mysterious Challenger, I'm playing a 6/6 with a 2/1 Taunt with a random, 3/2 buff. Like, that's basically what you're getting, plus a few extra things.
Right.
All right. So this also translates to knowing when to push for damage at the right times, and setting up 2-turn lethals and trading is actually better practice than sometimes, clearing the board and hitting them for 2, right? So or it's better yet, ignoring the board and pushing for 12 is sometimes a bad play, like, frankly.
Yeah.
And then here's the last 2 things. You can't play around everything, so don't try to. Like, don't play around the 10% chance that they have Fireball. I lost a game because the guy top decked a second Fireball and I had 12 health. I mean, it sucks, but what are the percentages? Like, he had less than 8% he could draw that card, and I'm not playing around it. Or even if it's 20% and it's a bad matchup and they could have that card, are you going to play around it, or are you going to go for it? Like, I think Hearthstone is at best like risk management with chess.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
And that translates to the last point, which is, again, what we said like 3 times, is play risky. You got to. The game's all about variance, so you got to risk sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's something that I can, as someone who really likes to, play the long game and the control game, it can be tempting to always just say, well, I'll play for maximum value all the time and see how this goes. But that can definitely lose you games. If you look down the long road, you never had a way of winning that game.
And you're right, you can't play against everything because it'll only hurt you in the long run sometimes. It's good to keep in mind where your opponent's going to play, but at the end of the day, you also have your own game plan. And sometimes, out of fear that your opponent might have the answers, you might not do your optimal plays or the right plays, and you definitely don't want that to happen. Sometimes you just gotta hope for the best and carry out your game plan.
All right, that's awesome. So that's the end of your list then, right, Rob?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, we could talk for hours, right? No, there's not more. There's not more. I'm just joking.
Good, because I'm like,
those are really good points. I definitely agree with all those. Definitely, all the things that you mentioned were the same things that I've kept in mind and the things that I've used to get to Legend before. And I think they're super valid. Anyone who's aspiring to get to Legend should definitely revisit those and sink them in, think about them, and make sure that they're following them.
I don't know. I think I'm just going to take Mill Rogue all the way and assume I'm going to win.
Dude, I got destroyed by a Mill Rogue yesterday.
See? Anecdotal evidence.
But it was in casual and I was playing Dragon Priest.
Man, you have it out for Dragon Priest today.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I love Dragon Priest. I just got to say that to redeem myself. I love Chillmaw. I crafted a golden one when it was a bad idea.
That's
and I just crafted
Skype
golden Ysera.
Pick. I'm looking at a golden Chillmaw.
And I made a golden Ysera like 2 weeks ago. It's so pretty.
Nice.
Yeah, I was really excited. The last, as I posted on Twitter, the last 15 packs I've opened, within them were 2 legendaries, a golden legendary, and 5 epics.
Happy birthday to you.
Yeah.
There you go. Nice. Yeah, Blizzard's definitely watching you.
Yeah.
Just like Santa Claus, he knows.
Exactly. And both the legendaries I pulled it didn't have before.
What were they?
Oh, nice. Which
one?
one?
Scenarius and Tinkmaster Overspark.
Oh, nice. Scenarius
is actually pretty legit. I still don't have Tink.
And then I got Golden Harrison, so that's probably going to be dusted for some TGT legendaries.
No, don't dust a Golden Harrison. You can't do that.
Don't you already have a Harrison, Brian?
Yes.
How many? How many good legendaries are you missing?
From the originals, I'd have to look in, but I know I don't have Blood Mage Thalmos. I'm still missing that one.
Okay.
From TGT, all of them.
Yeah, Brian, you need to think about it this way. Imagine the tilt of a warrior when you play Harrison Jones on them. Now imagine the tilt of a golden Harrison Jones.
You make a good point. I can play him and say greetings.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello there.
They will start misplaying from that point on.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll keep it. Honestly, it's not going to be dusted for a while because I'm still waiting to shake out to see what kind of legendaries I'd want to craft from TGD, because I feel all the ones that were hyped early on, people are 180ing on. So yeah, I'm giving it a little more time, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very excited about that, though.
That's very nice.
We can go ahead and close the show out here now. You can email us at hearthaholics@gmail.com if you have any listener topics. Most episodes we include a listener topic.
Do it.
But this episode is so packed, we didn't have a listener topic or a topic for me because we just had too much to talk about. So
I'm sorry, guys.
It was good stuff, Rob. No, don't worry about it. We all had plenty to talk about on the Climb Legend.
Yeah, just come watch my show. We're way more on track. That was a big joke because we definitely go on rabbit trails all the time.
You actually have an entire podcast about rabbit trails, which you will be plugging here in a moment.
That should be telling enough.
So, yeah, you can follow us on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, iTunes. Just search Hearthaholics. And we are a product of the Whales Are Whales Network, which is a network of different podcasts and internet media you can check out at whalesareWhales.com. That's Whales, A-R-E, Whales.com.
But they don't speak like whales, which is great.
And finally, we do a game night for the Angry Chicken, which we post about on their subreddit /TAC podcast. And you can find details there every week from Andres and I. Andres does the game nights for Monday nights every week at 6:30 p.m. Central Daily Time. And I do them on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m.
And I'll probably be there.
I'm having to keep all my time zones here together. And Andres does one that's more competitive focused, and the one I run is more tavern brawl and random deck focused. So depending on what you're interested in and what your time frames are, check those out. That's actually how all of us met. So
and Billy.
Yeah, and Billy. So we all came from those hangouts originally. Andres, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on Twitter. They can look for me at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. You can also listen to all my musical work, including the intro song to this podcast, at massevemusic.com. You spell that MASSEVE.com. Check it out.
Absolutely. And Rob, what about you?
Oh man, this is loaded. I'll go really fast because I do this on my show. But I run 2 podcasts, so we'll start with those. Velen's Chosen with the apostrophe is our podcast. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Stitcher, iTunes, whatever. So just look for it. I'll give Bryan all the links.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes for sure.
It's if you're looking for it on Twitter, it's probably the quickest way to grab everything. It's just Velen's Podcast, no punctuation. Okay. So at Velen's Podcast. And then if you want totally different kind of a tone, the MAYZ, or MAYZ, is a comedic podcast that I run with a couple friends of mine that I taught with in China. We're mixing up shows that we recorded on an iPhone in China, talking about some fun stuff for a couple weeks as bonus content. And then we also have our additional regular show that's us goofing around some fun topics that are all family friendly, humor.
That's hard to always get in combo with podcasts.
It sounds really dorky, and you're like, well, why would I ever listen to this?
It's good.
It's super fun, and like, I'm not usually normally full of myself, but this podcast, after like 2 episodes, you can skip the first 2. It's okay. I won't feel bad.
Yeah, I need to listen to the later ones,
but the most recent ones are really fun. Like, especially when we start doing Amazon reviews and talking about them, they're pretty good. And we had a game that we played on in China recently that you basically use like a voice of a common actor, like their acting voice for a character, and then you use that with a popular pop song. So we did like William Shatner with Taylor Swift's Trouble, and we did like Batman with Shake It Off or something like that. It's super fun. And our topics are really great too.
Nice.
So anyways, that's the MAYZ podcast. It's under comedy. I don't actually even remember what our handle is on Twitter. I think it's MAYZ_podcast. It's like really weird because a lot of stuff was taken.
Yeah.
So you can find us there. I'll give all the links in the show notes for Bryan and Andres to put in. So there's the podcast. You can find me, just me, on Twitter at NotRob. Very easy. NOTROB. And you can find me in pretty much anywhere else is something to do with Not Rob. So Not Rob, Not Rob May, MAY is my last name. So you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, everything. I have a online Facebook portfolio for some of the design work that I've done for Bryan and Andres' podcast, as well as my own work. And then I also do a lot of photography. So if you're in Indianapolis, Louisville, Indianapolis, Louisville, Chicago, Dayton, and Detroit area, that's my district. So I'd be willing to drive, but the fees are a little bit cheaper for those in the Indiana area, so I do a lot of photography, and check that out at Not Rob Media on Facebook.
All right.
I think that's it for me.
Is that it? Okay, cool. Let's see, what do I got? My Twitter is Lord Meldor, LORDMELDORR. Everything else I do is on whalesareWhales.com, as I plugged before. One thing that's always fun to check out is the Whales Are Whales podcast, and that's just the podcast where everyone part of the Whales Are Whales network just gets together and talks about whatever, a bit like the MAYZ, but with members of the Whales Are Whales network. And yeah, Rob, I've definitely got an appreciation for podcasts where you don't necessarily need some overarching topic. Even if people don't listen to it, it's just so much fun to record because it's like a time to sit down and just have really fun conversations with friends. So
yeah, the MAYZ is actually really ironic because that's what it was the first 2 episodes, and then we started planning segments and structure, and it got a lot more fun. So
we do the same thing. Yeah, it's just like we put just weird segments in to just create like fun, interesting conversations.
Yeah, it's basically like you're giving yourself some doors to go walk in some fun rooms to talk about, and that's it.
Exactly. Something we've had pretty consistently now is a story time where we tell a consistent story, but we each have 20 seconds to tell it before it goes to the next person.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then we post-production edit it with a bunch of music and sound effects, and it is a lot of fun.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a blast.
If anyone's interested in that, check out the MAYZ podcast and Whales Are Whales podcast. They're kind of brothers in how they do things.
That's sweet. I'll have to check that out.
Yep. And that'll do it for this week's episode. Thank you, everyone who's made it this far. We will talk to you guys later. And yeah, we don't have our flavor text thing here anymore because I'm actually working on a new segment that we didn't get to this episode.
But wow, darn it.
Next week. New, interesting stuff. And next week, you can find us all the places we said, everyone.
Let the hunt begin.